Good to have you back on One Man on Mars devlog. My name is Roman, and today we will have a look at bringing an enemy to life part 2. Last time I showed you how the sketching and designing phase looks, so the general art creation part. And today we want to kind of bring some motion into these pretty pictures. But before we start that, I want to give a shout out to all of you who watched my last video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The link for it is here or somewhere else on the screen. And a special thanks goes out to Nick, my old friend, who was the first one to get a shirt from my shirt shop and supported me with that. That I was very happy to see that happening, so thanks a lot. And because of that, I want to give away a shirt today. So I already started printing shirts for the Gamescom, and yeah, this is one and this is the other one. So front and back. So, and yeah, as I said, I want to give away at one of you this shirt. So if you want to have it, stay here and I will tell you how to get it at the end of the video. All right, I'd say let's start animating. Good, but before we can start animating, we need to give that spineless creature some bones. Let's check where we left last time around. So these are the three art sets I created, and I use the script to export the single individual elements of each character into spine. So each bone is one image in the cloth, and for example the jaw and the skull and so on. So everything that needs to be animated separately is one single image. And as said, the script just exports all these layers and brings them into position in spine. And the cool thing is that if you want to have skins, like I do in this case, you just can put all the bones that belong to one skin in one folder and give them the prefix skin, and then this export script will kind of rearrange them in spine so that you can simply use the skins as you want to. That's really cool and saves a lot of time. Switching through the different skins just to check if everything is alright. I think one bone is missing, but I'm just gonna fix that quickly. Alright, the humerus has reappeared. So let's start to add bones to all the individual images. I normally start with the backbone and then add more and more bones from there on. Always try to kind of assign the images to the bones already. So for example, let's take the skull and we'll just first select the image and then add the bone to that image, so the image already knows, okay, I belong to that bone, and whenever that bone will be rotated or moved, I will move along that bone. I also use some additional bones for cloth, so I can animate them. Some I use for fixed points and some I use for moving points. I can show you later how that works. Yeah, there are still a lot of bones missing, so I speed the process a bit up to yeah, don't bore you to death here. Before we can head to the next step, let's do some testing if everything works okay. Move around some bones to check if everything is assigned correctly. There seems to be a sorting problem here, but we can fix that later. So skeleton, is everything fine? Yes, it seems to approve. Alright, the next step will be adding some meshes to the images that are, or that needs to be distorted later during the animation process. For example, the cloth on his upper body or the cloth on his on his torso, no, not the torso, on his waist, and the boot, since one boot is one individual image, and I want to move the ankle, I need to add a mesh to the boot, though I can deform that. So yeah, I'm starting here, adding a mesh to the cloth on the upper body. Just kind of try to get rid of the empty space and then just add some details to the mesh to have a clean deformation later. So yeah, let's quickly do that. Once that is done, I can start adding IK constraints, so inverse kinematic constraints. Normally you control bones from parent to children, so if I move the parent bone, the child bone moves along. And if you don't want to have that because you want to kind of keep your foot rested on the ground and don't want them to be moved when the bone of the upper leg moves, you kind of need to add some constraints to it. You can see me doing it here for his right arm or his left arm. I just added a constraint to the wrist so that I can now move the whole arm when I move the wrist, and all the bones move accordingly, but on an inverse way. That's why it's called inverse kinematics. So I'm gonna add that to all 4 limbs and to his backbone, and I'm just gonna add 2 more for his feet, and yeah, I think that's it. Let's do that in high speed. The last step is weighting the meshes, so I can control how much each part of the mesh gets deformed by which bone. That's helpful to create a believable behavior. At this point, everything seems to be set up the right way as needed for the animations. So yeah, after some last tests, let's jump into going through all the needed animations. I have 10 animations to do that are 3 attack movements, 1 death movement, 1 movement for falling down somewhere, 1 movement for getting hurt, 1 idle, 1 walk, 1 for run, and 1 for throwing the sword. Well, as said in the last video, I want to have 3 different subtypes of this enemy, and they need to be skillful in different ways, or the third one needs to be a bit more aggressive than the first one and maybe has more attacks than the first one, and so on. I start here with the idle animation, which is always the easiest, and that's maybe why I always start with the idle animation. Yeah, I bring the enemy into the ground pose and then add some keys to the first and last position, so I make sure that the animation loops correctly. And then I start kind of adding some subtle animations, for example like the jaw, or kind of moving the upper body up and down. And yeah, this kind of creates just a simple movement for the idle process. You can already see him kind of bending its knees, and yeah, also try to add secondary animations, so animations that get caused by the character moving, for example the cloth kind of swinging back and forth, to kind of give the illusion of a vivid character. This is really important so animations don't look stiff and lifeless. So let's check if this was already helpful. After some tweaks here and there in high speed, I think that already looks okay. I'd say let's have a look at another, maybe a bit more complex animation. Let's take 1 attack movement, and I think the rest would just take way too long for such a video, so let's skip the rest. Or maybe even better, let's take the walk cycle, because on a walk cycle there's something that I can show you, that you can do rotation on the y-axis if you want in Spine, which is very cool. I mean, it's totally faked, but it's still very cool. So you will be able to see it a bit later, that I try to rotate the torso via mesh deformation. But first, just let's do the basics for the walk cycle. So let's start with the first pose. Both legs are wide apart, and then the opposite pose. I'm not doing the 5-step standard setup for the walk cycle here, but just well, one workflow that works much better for me. And adding some height changement of the upper body here, and you can already recognize that it will be a walk cycle later. And you can also see deformation of the feet here, and I'm starting adding secondary animation for the cloth, so the cloth get moved around when the upper bone of his leg kind of touches him. And here, you see that there's still a sorting problem with the hand. The hand disappears behind his back when it's moved, so I changed that here quickly. And here I will start adding rotation to the upper body, so I take the bones that I added to his upper cloth and just move them around a bit, and you can see that it kind of gives the idea of rotation through that. Just manipulating the weight of the mesh a bit to get a better result here, and checking all the other skins as well. So I mean, all the animation, they have to look good on all the skins, so double checking is quite important. And adding also some rotation to the lower body here, and I think I was not pleased with that, so I added even a third bone to the middle of the cloth to be able to control the deformation as needed. Good, let's speed it up here again and check out how the more or less finished walk cycle animation looks like. Alright, just a few seconds more and it should be good. Yeah, alright, here we go. So this is the finished, in quotes, walk cycle. I always go back and do some more changes, but you can see that I added a bit of more animation to the head and cloth and stuff like that, so it kind of looks convincing. Checking all the skins again, and yeah, checking the idle animation from before. And yeah, let's do a cut here and jump way into the future where all the animations are done and look through all the finished animation.
Gut gemachter Szenenwechsel.
Back in Spine, having done all the animations. Here's the idle one. Let's get rid of the display of the bones so we can see better how everything looks. Maybe let's zoom a bit. Yep, like that. All the skins, as mentioned last time around, I changed the color for the cloth a bit, so yeah, they're very easily, you can easily distinguish them now from each other. So let's check the walk cycle. Maybe speed it up a bit. I even added here a bit of color changes to the upper body, so it gets a bit darker when the upper body turns. This kind of enhances the illusion of rotation here. I think it works best on this one here. And let's check out running. I think this needs to be sped up even a bit more, or kind of slowed it down. I don't know what the speed will be in the game afterwards. I would have to check that in Unity, but yeah, that's how it is right now. And what happens if you hurt the character? So that's this, more a bit high speed. So whenever the enemy gets hurt but does not die, then this animation will be played. When you kind of finish him up, the death animation will come into play like this. Yep. Put it up a bit. Poor guy, and but he's not so poor after all. Then he can do some attacks. So this is attack number 1, the first one, and attack number 2. So they're done. So you can do combos. So attack number 2, attack 1, attack 2, and the last attack is the dash attack. So this will be animated in Unity. Well, the movement will be animated in Unity afterwards. So I have to kind of split that movement up into 2 parts. The build up, like that, and then the dash. So building up and dash, building up, dash. Yeah, that's needed to kind of, so I can control how long the build-up will be. This is kind of important to balance the character. If the build-up is too short, then the reaction time would be too small, or yeah, not long enough for the player. So this splitting it up into 2 animations, I can control that as needed. And what is next? Falling down. So if the enemy walks over a ledge or something, then he needs to have a falling motion. We already had hurt, we already had run, and the last one is the throwing animation. So if this character spots the player but is too far away, he will throw a sword at you. So or that's the goal. So that's the animation that will be used for that. So yeah, that's it. Let's check some if that works for the other 2. Yeah, I think the first one will not be able to throw the sword, so it will be the second and the third one. That's why they have curved swords, or swords like that kind of look like a boomerang, to kind of support the idea of the sword coming back to the enemy. Yeah, that's it. Going through all the animations once more. Well, there's the dash back. It's hard to recognize what he's doing here because there is no root motion. So the root bone would need to be controlled, or will need to be controlled by Unity later in the game. All right. Cool, all the animations are done. What is left is bringing all the assets, so art and animations, into the game. That is what we're gonna look at in the next episode. So I really hope that I can show you at the end of the next episode how the enemy will perform directly on the Switch itself. So that will be awesome. Yeah, thanks for staying until here and watching the video. And if you're interested in winning this awesome shirt, just post a comment down in the video and I will get back to you. I hope you liked today's episode, and yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.